100 days ago, the previously unthinkable happened in Israel. A state born out of adversity and war only 75 years ago woke up to what some have since described as a threat to its very existence. On Saturday night in Tel Aviv, the events of 7 October were commemorated by thousands of people. Uppermost on the minds of everyone were the around 130 hostages abducted by Hamas and still being held in Gaza, although some of them may not still be alive. Just after dawn 100 days ago, thousands of heavily armed Hamas fighters stormed through and over the Gaza border fence in several different places. They attacked kibbutzim, military bases, and border towns accustomed to rocket attacks from Gaza, but overwhelmed by the scale of the Hamas incursion. At least 1,200 people were killed along the length of the border as Israeli defenses were caught completely by surprise. I spoke to Yossi Schneider, a cousin of Shiri Bibas, who was kidnapped along with her 2 young children and husband. There are 130 people, mainly civilians, being held without medicines, and the Red Cross is not even being allowed to visit them. Says Yossi, angered that the wider family has received little information on their physical or mental welfare. As Israel's shaken defense establishment eventually responded to what was happening in the south as Saturday 7 October drew to a close, the Israeli military embarked on an unprecedented bombing campaign in Gaza. Its stated goal, the complete destruction of Hamas and its support structure. Much of the territory, from Gaza City in the north to Khan Yunis in the south, has since been destroyed. Israel says Hamas has been severely weakened and, according to the Israeli military, rendered almost inoperable as an organized force in northern Gaza. But the number of civilians killed in the Israeli bombardment has been enormous. Palestinian officials say that 85% of Gaza's population has been displaced, while more aid is now getting into Gaza. The UN's humanitarian chief has described the situation as intolerable. Eitan Abu Shahada needs regular kidney dialysis, which is one reason why she and her family have been forced to move south. Home for Fatin and the kids is now a plastic tent in Khan Yunis, the sound of an Israeli drone overhead their constant companion. Gaza has been destroyed. There's no Gaza left, no hospitals, no education, says Fatin. Our children have lost their school year. Gaza is no longer alive. Israel is coming under increasing international pressure to consider a ceasefire or pause in Gaza. Such is the scale of the civilian suffering. Even its closest ally, the U.S., which consistently defends Israel's right to self-defense and to prevent a repetition of 7 October, has repeatedly told Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu that the civilian death toll is far too high. President Biden has spoken of Israel's indiscriminate bombing, which he said meant the country was losing support around the world. Gideon Levy is a columnist for the Israeli newspaper Haaretz and a frequent critic of Mr. Netanyahu. I asked him if this war, already Israel's longest since 1948, would soon come to a conclusion. The war in its current shape will last as long as Americans will allow Israel to do it, says Levy. He adds, I don't think it will be many weeks more. But that doesn't mean that the war is over, because nobody has thought about the day after. If Israel doesn't pull out of Gaza, there will be resistance. And if there is resistance, there will be retaliation. Israel says the fighting will not end until Hamas is completely defeated. The immediate future across the region, and especially for thousands of civilians living in appalling conditions in Gaza, looks particularly bleak.